Good evening and welcome to our 2022 Sault Ste. Marie Mayoral Forum. Tonight's forum is being held in council chambers at the Ronald A. Irwin Civic Centre. My name is Rory Ring and I am CEO for the Chamber of Commerce, and I will be acting as the MC for tonight's forum. We wish to acknowledge that we are holding this meeting on the traditional, territorial, and ancestral lands of the Ojibwe people from the Garden River and Batchewana First Nations, as well as the Métis peoples. To the Shoemaker people, this sacred and spiritual place has been known since time immemorial as Bawa King. We wish to honor the original people on this part of Turtle Island, and as we recognize their homelands in the spirit of partnership and reconciliation. As part of their ongoing commitment to our local community, Algoma University, the Sault Ste. Marie Chamber of Commerce, and SooToday have partnered to present tonight's event. I would now like to call on our moderator, Dr. Trevor Cheer, Associate Professor of Political Science and Chair of the Department of Law and Politics at Algoma University.
Thank you. And before we begin, I would like to remind everyone here in person, if you haven't already done so, to please turn off your phone or turn your ringers and notifications to silent. I would like to run through the format for tonight's mayoral forum. All candidates on the ballot for the October 24th election were invited to take part tonight. Seating and question order for the candidates was decided by a random draw prior to tonight's broadcast. Similarly, questions and their order were decided before tonight's broadcast and prior to the candidates' draw, so the first respondent to each question will be based on luck of the draw. Questions will be posed tonight by students currently enrolled in political science and law and justice programs at Algoma University. Thank you to Rajwant Kaur, Karina Konini, Colton Oliverio, and Anna Reich. Once a question has been posed, each candidate will have 90 seconds to respond. At the end of their allotted response time, their microphones will be turned off. With each new question, a different candidate will respond first. I'd like to remind all candidates of a few ground rules. Profanity and interrupting candidates who have the mic will not be tolerated, and at any point I may request a candidate to stay on topic. At the end of our question period, each candidate will have 2 minutes to provide closing remarks, and we encourage each candidate within those closing remarks to speak a little bit about their leadership style and how they'll encourage good governance on City Council. We would like to thank and welcome the candidates for the mayoral race who are joining us this evening. Donna Hilsinger, Ozzie Grandinetti, Robert Peace, Matthew Shoemaker, and Tobin Kern. At this point, I'd like to invite Rajwant Kaur to ask the first question in tonight's mayoral forum.
Hi. So my first question is, what will you do to improve Sault Ste. Marie's economy, create more jobs and opportunities, and make this city an attractive place to do business? Thank you.
Thank you. We'll begin with Donna Hilsinger.
Thank you, and thank you to all of you who've joined us here this evening to hear what we have to say about our plans, and thank you to those of you who are at home watching. For our economy, my plans are to continue to support our existing local businesses of all sizes and their efforts to innovate and grow their markets and their revenues. Focus on diversifying our economy by attracting growing industries like clean and green energy, sustainable manufacturing and industry, personal services, and biotechnology. We need to eliminate municipal red tape for business. We need to remove barriers making it easier to do business in the Soo and adopt a one-window, customer-focused approach to access city services. Identify services that can be digitized and establish a plan to implement for efficiency and convenience. Promote and support shop local campaigns. Cap taxes at or below the rate of inflation up to a maximum of 2.5%. Strategically invest in our quality of life attributes to differentiate our city from our competition to attract new businesses and residents. Due to our increased credit rating, one of the comments mentioned was about our strength in tourism, and we need to update our tourism strategic plan and create a tourism product development investment plan. ensure our labor force can meet the needs of business, and review current economic development incentives for effectiveness and identify what should be added, what should be discontinued, or what could be improved. Thanks.
Thank you. Next is Ozzie Grandinetti.
Thank you. Thank you for the question. First of all, there's no magic recipe for economic diversification and attracting new business here to Sault Ste. Marie. However, it is linked with economic development and poverty reduction, and it is crucial for us to attract more industry and business so we can increase the number of quality jobs. Sault Ste. Marie needs to be recognized as a smart, growing, high quality of life community that is home to multiple industrial sectors. I will support small businesses as they are the backbone of our economy. We need to cut red tape so that it makes it easier to attract small business into the community for existing businesses to expand. I will continue to support the existing industries and business and welcome new business developments in all sectors, which include the downtown and post-secondary institutions. I will push to have more attractions, festivals like the Rib Fest and Poutine Fest in our downtown, which makes Sault Ste. Marie a better place and attracts many people. More people equals more businesses. I believe that our city should also look at a wide array of manufacturing industries so that we could diversify into such industries such as the electric vehicle sector, the tech sector, sports tourism such as bicycle races, more baseball tournaments, and I would also look at bringing back the Steel City Hockey Tournament. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Robert Peace.
Thank you. I know businesses already can't find enough employees, and if they do, they have nowhere to live. Everything is connected to everything else in this city. With my focus on our community to solve problems and develop solutions, I'd like to promote sustainable and long-term economic growth through non-traditional initiatives with a diverse economy, not a single industrial-based solution. I want to urge our new council to challenge the status quo, reducing policies and regulations that stifle a community's efforts to dream and implement a new and sometimes maybe crazy ideas. It's easy for municipal officials to be adverse to change, fearing its impact on the community in future elections. We must overcome that fear. Being overly cautious can impede the community's ability to develop and grow economically. Removing barriers to community ideas sometimes takes the form of changing policies, bylaws, or even challenging the thinking of municipal staff and officials that this is the way it's always been done. Other areas must include streamlining our development process and not following the plans of one of my opponents, which is to cut or eliminate building permit fees and development fees. We must grow our tax base, but not lose our tax base.
Thank you. Next is Matthew Shoemaker.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you to our hosts for inviting us to this event tonight. Buonasera alle genti di Sault Ste. Marie, io mi chiamo Matthew Shoemaker e io domando per la votatura il 24 ottobre per il sindaco. Bonsoir tout le monde, je m'appelle Matthew Shoemaker et je vous demande pour votre support le 24 octobre comme maire. With respect to economic development in Sault Ste. Marie, I have been a fierce advocate for increasing our economic development over the course of my terms on council. I have in my platform a plan for progress, a proposal to increase our economic development fund, which currently sits at $500,000 a year over the course of the term. For example, that fund was used in the last couple of years to invest in Tenaris's expansion and their addition of a cold line here in Sault Ste. Marie. Unfortunately, we didn't have enough in our economic development fund to do that all at once, so we had to use an economic development reserve to achieve that. If we could expand our economic development fund to a greater amount, we'd be able to seize more of those opportunities as they present themselves. I've also been lobbying the provincial government over the course of my 2 terms to move every OLG job here to Sault Ste. Marie, and I think that is one of the lowest hanging fruit possibilities that the Sioux can pursue so that we can get those good, high-paying jobs all here on Foster Drive.
Thank you. Next is Tobin Kern.
Thank you very much for the question. With the federal commitments on climate change and current realities, we need to consider climate change and refocus our investment through a climate change lens. In the future, likely we'll be moving very different, and we should refocus our investment in transportation reflecting those changes. Likely we'll be moving away from individual transport and towards shared and active transportation, and that's how other cities are investing, and I think we should do the same. We need to facilitate connections with groups like Rethink Green and for things like non-fossil fuel heating. We need to continue to support our economic development team at the city and their initiatives that they're undertaking. One thing I want to mention is that one of my major focuses will be on addressing the housing and homelessness crisis as well as the addictions epidemic. We cannot run full tilt into these unmitigated risks, and because we don't know their costs. What will the policing costs be, social services levy?
Thank you. I'd like now to invite Karina Konini to the microphone to ask question number 2.
Hello. What will you do to ensure a reasonable minimum standard of living for people in Sault Ste. Marie, including income security, access to affordable quality housing, and food security?
Thank you. We will begin with Ozzie Grandinetti.
Thank you for the question. As for food security, we have a number of initiatives in the city, such as Harvest Algoma and the community gardens. We need to support our farmers and encourage the use of community food gardens, food markets, and teach people how to best use the fresh grown fruits and vegetables. I'm sure that there are many other areas, but this is one way Sault Ste. Marie can increase the amount of food available for local food banks and social services. On the housing front, there's a need for more affordable housing in Sault Ste. Marie. We need to ensure that housing is adequate and affordable. The money that was taken from different places to fund the plaza could have been better spent on affordable housing. The city and its partners need to have 30% available units of housing and rental housing that are considered affordable for low to medium income individuals. We need to provide incentives and support initiatives that increase the rental housing stock in Sault Ste. Marie, such as second units. We need to create efficiencies within the municipal approval process so we can address systemic barriers and make it easier for homeowners to maintain their existing housing stock and add secondary housing through renovations, infill, and custom home building. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Robert Peace.
Thank you. We need local investment with government partnerships to buy up old housing stock and renovate for rent-to-geared income housing. We need leadership bringing mayors together to lobby for a change in property tax assessment from being based on land value of the house to your income instead. There are many people, especially seniors, who may have had their houses increase in value, but whose income remains the same or less with inflation. You know who you are. We need to explore a rental subsidy for qualified individuals and have that rental assistance follow the individual rather than being tied to a specific apartment. We can make it easier to build housing, but waiving development fees, as proposed by Mr. Shoemaker, is a losing solution. Streets and services need to be built. The developer needs to pay for that, not you. Even the Association of Municipalities of Ontario have condemned this plan. And we must not back down from negotiating affordable housing units in our new rental buildings. 2 of my opponents here tonight, just last month, waived the requirements for a single affordable unit to be built in a 220-unit building. How can you claim a desire for affordable housing and then give a pass to something like that?
Thank you. Next is Matthew Shoemaker.
Thank you for the question. I've got in my platform a New Foundations housing development program, which is modeled off of a program that they've developed in Barrie. What it does is takes underutilized land and looks at the development prospects of that land to see if we can increase the density of existing buildings in town. So Sault Ste. Marie's recently had some examples of successes of this nature, like the Royal Canadian Legion, which was recently demolished. It housed previously a banquet hall, meeting rooms, and a bar. And it's been torn down, and what it will house when it's redeveloped is a banquet hall, meeting rooms, and a bar, as well as 107 residential units. And there are other opportunities on church properties, on not-for-profit, on charity properties. Anybody who's got underutilized land, the city should go to them, partner with them in determining what the best and densest use is for that property so that we can increase the density in areas that are already serviced by municipal water, municipal sewers, things of that nature. I would just like to clear up one thing. There aren't development charges in the Soo. My friend has not done his research properly, and if I'm the mayor, there will be no development charges for the next 4 years. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Tobin Kern.
Thank you. So the mayor's position is an excellent opportunity for advocacy. Now, we have to understand that for most Canadians, income has stagnated and declined. We're seeing some growth due to recent labor demand, but it's not making up for the shortfall. So we need to advocate on behalf of people and reflect the reality in our advocacy that we need further investment from the province and the feds to make life easier. I've heard a lot about attracting businesses and jobs, but this is far from certain. What I'd like to see, what I believe a city can do is alleviate financial pressures and subsidize costs while addressing climate change. Affordable, usable public transit could reduce the needs for cars and expense. They are a great expense for most households. We definitely, as other people tonight have touched on, we need a bigger affordable housing stock. Canada is dismal when it comes to public housing stock compared to most OECD countries, and the situation is dire. Market housing is too volatile and expensive, so we need to look at every measure possible, even looking at selling city assets like parking lots to create more affordable housing. Food investment in urban agriculture, local agriculture, and other initiatives maximizes carbon capture for underused land. We could do more of that.
Thank you. Next is Donna Hilsinger.
We need to build more housing and faster. And in order to reach our growth goals for Sault Ste. Marie, we need to build at a rate that we haven't seen since the 1980s. In order to reach this challenging goal, I support streamlining development approvals at City Hall, selling city-owned land for development, and generating a new community improvement plan that will add and streamline incentives for development. We have vacant land available to be built on, especially downtown, and the city needs to help make it easier to do so. The Sault Ste. Marie Housing Corporation can play a role in offering cost rentals, which is essentially rent at cost for development and purchase. We have a strength in our Sault Ste. Marie Housing Corporation. We must support their ideas and innovation. We should consider options for private-public development to increase supply, and we need to think density. And recognizing that those experiencing homelessness in the Soo are disproportionately Indigenous, we must embrace Indigenous-led solutions. Utilize the power and breadth and strength of community-based non-governmental organizations. Harvest Algoma is a great example of successful food supply and food security investment and initiatives that was supported at its inception by the DSAB, and they continue to supply some funding. New things that are happening, the Innovation Center received a grant from our new Green Initiatives Fund to supply an installation of hydroponic technology at Harvest Algoma, which is going to help us grow food year-round, as did the YMCA receiving funding for 3 tower gardens in their daycare. So there's great things we can do.
Thank you. I would now like to invite Colton Oliverio to ask the next question.
Hello, it's nice to meet you all. So to get around the city, all forms of transportation need good roads. So what are your planning priorities for the roadways in the city, as well as public transportation?
We'll begin with Robert Peace.
Thank you very much. Well, one of the first things, I am going to invoke development charges to help pay for the roads and the things that taxpayers are fed up having to subsidize on behalf of those developers. Sault Ste. Marie faces a population decline, increases in aging populations, and economic hardship. The imbalance of resources, lower population densities, and the distances, like traditional fixed-route bus services or shared active transportation programs, make many transit plans financially unsustainable. As a result, many residents are met with the limited travel options that make it so difficult to access essential services and maintain a higher quality of life. An interesting idea raised last night by one of the candidates was, one of the ward candidates, was the fact that although he had worked here for 30 years in the education system, he had never heard of transit and school bus services teaming up to possibly create a new innovative solution to early morning and afternoon rush hour travel, something I'd like to explore with council. Smaller centers are increasingly realizing that transit helps alleviate many pressing problems, including those related to wealth inequality, climate change, and mobility. The cost of transit also is a barrier, and I'd like to work with some of our large low-wage retail employers in town to try and get them to pay for the cost of getting to and from work for their employees. I think it's upon them to do that.
Thank you. Next is Matthew Shoemaker.
Thank you. With respect to the improvement of our roads generally, I would say that over the course of the past council term, much of the money that we get for roads, the gas tax money, has been diverted to the downtown plaza, which I haven't supported since the costs have increased numerous times over the course of the term. I would have used that money, the gas tax money, for improvement of our roads, especially the critical improvement that's required each spring when the potholes resurface. However, transportation is not only roads, it's also active transportation, bike lanes, the hub trail, and I've got a plan for all of these. With respect to the hub trail, I want, and I have pushed council, and council has approved, making a Spoke to James Street the highest priority in terms of the next step in expansion of the hub trail. I also want to see additional spokes westbound into Bayview and Buckley, where they are underserviced by the hub trail. We've approved over 50 kilometers in bike trails in the past council term. I want us to see more bike lanes, approved in the next term. So these are numerous ways that we get around with respect to transportation. We brought back Sunday bus service after it was cut early in 2015, and we found a route reorganization that was able to do it without adding substantial amount of money to the city's transit budget.
Thank you. Next is Tobin Kern.
We need to be careful on how we invest money on road infrastructure. Many analysts agree that we likely won't be moving the same way starting in 10 years from now. And it's unlikely that electric cars can replace the gas vehicles, which will likely be phased out through Canada's climate change commitments. So we need to prepare for the future like other cities, invest in public transit, explore opportunities for electric rideshare, even autonomous rideshare if they present themselves. We need to explore expanding infrastructure for small electrics and active.
We spend more per capita than our neighboring municipalities on improving our road structure. And while I understand that the pothole season isn't fun, our staff have tried very hard with new equipment in the last few years, and we'll continue to work on that. We'll work on that program to address those things more quickly and more thoroughly. But now we have a transportation budget instead of a roads budget, where we're treating our transportation systems holistically, and that increases accessibility. We have a speed management plan that's now in place, which will include how has been undertaken, and will include how we implement road design improvements. I believe we should do things like pilot a community bus program using smaller buses to create a more customized service for dense neighborhoods off of main routes, bus service that better meets the needs of our seniors, more convenient parabus service, enhance our current service to include simple amenities like Wi-Fi for riders. Some routes are experiencing high volume demand during on-demand service times on Saturdays. We need to address this, and we can undertake things like examine the expansion of transfer points to make using public transport.
Thank you. Next is Ozzie Grandinetti.
Thank you. First of all, development charges aren't going to solve our road problems. At the end of the day, the homeowner or property owner ends up paying for it because the developer ends up adding these costs to the cost of the lot. So that being said, we have to support an active transportation plan. We need to develop a better transit plan with the help from our bus drivers and not a consultant from Southern Ontario that would encourage ridership by providing more and better bus routes. reduced fares and incentives for those with a monthly pass, such as having a family pass or looking into having free bus rides during certain times of days. We have to look at installing roundabouts in our community. Believe it or not, London, Ontario has these roundabouts in their new residential areas as it keeps traffic flowing. Better timing of our traffic lights. Have our traffic lights flash during the off-peak hours, like they do in Sault, Michigan. And this is an initiative that Councillor Shoemaker brought forward about 5 or 6 years ago. We also need to look at expanding the hub trail to the northern and western areas of the city, connecting them to Ward 4, 5, and possibly into Prince Township. We need to incorporate more bike lanes and improve the ones we have. We can make this a standard practice when roads are reconstructed. One cost-effective idea is as simple as paving the roads to the edge to allow for more space for people to bike. I believe that we can encourage more people.
Thank you very much. I'll invite Rajwant Kaur to the microphone to ask question number 4.
So my question is, what will you do to help to protect Sault Ste. Mary's natural environment and enhance its recreational opportunities? Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll begin with Matthew Shoemaker.
Thank you for the question. Well, with respect to the environment, I've got a plan in my plan for progress to double municipal tree planting. Since I was elected, we have doubled municipal tree planting already, and I want to see it doubled again. We were planting about 150 trees a year when I was first elected. We're now at 300. I want to see us to get to 600 by the end of the next term. Electrification of the city's fleet is another area where we can have an impact on our carbon footprint, and that's something that we need to be pursuing. We're already purchasing the city's first electric Zamboni, and we should be getting to electric vehicles for our public works passenger vehicles, our fire service passenger vehicles, and ultimately to our city buses. That's with respect to the environment. With respect to recreation, I've got in my plan for progress want to see a beachfront or a beach area developed at Bellevue Park, and I have pushed for and had approved a bus from the downtown to Pointe de Chêne, which has had a great success in the last couple of years that it's run as a pilot program. Over 600 families from the downtown area and students have used that service to get from the downtown to Pointe de Chêne at a relatively low expense. And this is the type of opportunity we have to pursue to provide the recreational opportunities that some of us can enjoy to the whole community. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Tobin Kern.
Thank you very much for the question. Much of why I ran for mayor was around environmental concerns. I believe we have a moral and ethical obligation to do more on climate change, just like every other community. Before I get into how we might address climate change, I will say that we need to avoid new pollution, industrial pollution, to make sure our ecosystems and community are healthy, because we're still contending with the legacy of industrial pollutants like in our brown sites and such. Things we can do, we definitely need to review all aspects of city operations through a greenhouse gas reduction lens. I know this has been done, but it needs to be done at greater detail. We should reduce transit prices to increase ridership in tandem with increases in services to make public transit use more feasible for most citizens and address transportation equity. We need to adopt a more ambitious timeline and targets for reaching net zero greenhouse gas emissions. And as mayor and council, we need to advocate that council members act as ambassadors for climate change action, use public transit, walk or bike, promote climate-friendly lifestyle practices. I've personally pledged to have zero transportation emissions on city business. And we need to have closer communications with citizen advocacy groups and the MECP to ensure industrial emission standards are being adhered.
Thank you. Next is Donna Hilsinger.
I've been the chair of the Environmental Sustainability Committee, our newly formed committee here in Sault Ste. Marie, for the last 2 years. Transportation, emissions reduction, and better public transit will be key elements in any successful plan to create a greener and a healthier community. Our current greenhouse gas emissions reduction plan isn't ambitious enough, and I believe it can be shortened by 10 years to achieve net zero by 2040. I also aspire to create a plan to achieve a vision of being a community with the most green space per capita in the whole country of Canada. We can accomplish these and other things by accelerating our conversion to electric buses and electric city vehicles, prioritizing building retrofits for energy efficiency, and using the savings from those retrofits to invest in further emission reduction projects. Producer responsibility for recycling is coming from other levels of government. We need community composting. We need our community waste reduction waste management plan. Enhance our single-use plastics ban, look at tree preservation initiatives, support our current efforts to have the Great Canadian Water Agency located here. I've been working on the John Rosewell Hub Trail for over 20 years. It's something that I'm very proud of. Our new active transportation plan will identify hub trail links that will expand the trail. Our mountain bike trails are growing, creating our network that's good for residents and for attracting tourism. We need better access in all 4 seasons, and we need accessibility for everyone.
Thank you. Next is Ozzie Grandinetti.
Thank you. We always seem to talk about going green with electric lawnmowers, electric vehicles. Well, why aren't we talking about going after our major polluting companies that are located here in Sault Ste. Marie? We have one of the dirtiest industries in the world, but no one, including the federal and provincial government, seem to do anything about it. They have contaminated a certain site that the city now owns, and I think we should force them to pay for it, rather than the city taxpayer foot the bill for it. The federal government has banned single-use plastic bags, so why not do the same with election signs? And as you could all see, they're littered all over the city. I plan on expanding recycling, such as the Green Box program, recycling different types of plastics instead of everything going into our landfill after Michigan. We could plant more trees, provide free disposal for those who are bringing composting material to our landfill. I would also like to add more hybrid vehicles to our fleet, as I don't think the grid will be able to handle all these electric vehicles being plugged in. As for the recreation side, I've already mentioned expansion of the hub trail, more mountain bike trails, more ball tournaments, hockey tournaments, skiing meets, and I plan on reopening the Point-of-Shane campsite by the spring of 2023, rather than convert it into residential estate lots. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Robert Peace.
Thank you. I'd like to start by thanking Tobin for being a great ambassador and bringing the environment to the forefront in this. And the answer to that question is really up to us. Our economy will be stimulated, and there will be good long-term jobs on projects that will save our environment and our future if we look down the green road. The focus on a green economy will create a massive need for business, professionals, and trained and retained tradespeople, especially in the fields of energy efficiency, renewable energy production, digital operating here. We have to make them more accountable and simply not allow them just to pay the fines that they're paying when we see them polluting with our own eyes every day. This is no longer acceptable, and we have to make them accountable.
Thank you. I'll now invite Anna Reich to ask the next question.
If elected, what would you do to be a strong ally for Indigenous people in Sault Ste. Marie? In the spirit
By the city is the Bawaching Advisory Circle, and I think that's a great initiative, but it needs to be reinvigorated and expanded upon. In my platform, I called for basically the renewal of that council. And from their guidance, I'd like to see a creation of a permanent committee, either that committee or a new committee, to help implement the calls to action that were addressed by the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. I'd also like to see the committee explore adopting UNDRIP, the United Nations Declaration of Rights of Indigenous People. I think there's a lot of work to be done, and a lot that Indigenous communities can offer our Sault Ste. Marie. I have to point out, as someone who makes the environment a focus, it's First Nations people who are the only people who have lived on this land sustainably. So we really have a lot to learn from them.
City could provide. If an Office of Indigenous Affairs is recommended, I would proceed as asked. I'm committed to working with the leadership of local First Nation communities and the Métis Nation and organizations like the Indian Friendship Centre and the Children of Shingwak. I'm committed to implementing recommendations from the Truth and Reconciliation, including call to action number 57, which calls for all governments, including municipal governments, to educate public servants on the history of Aboriginal peoples, including the history and legacy of residential schools. We have to embrace the importance of truth-telling. We all of us in this community, need to understand the truth of what happened in the residential school system, and we need to understand the ongoing impact that has had in our Indigenous communities and with our Indigenous friends. If I'm elected mayor, I would work with my colleagues and city staff to identify other calls to action that we could undertake or advocate for as a municipality. And personally, I will continue to seek advice from an elder to help in my own personal path forward with our Indigenous people.
Thank you. Next is Ozzie Grandinetti.
Thank you. First of all, we need to ensure the land acknowledgement is made at the beginning of all meetings. But we also need to be sure that the one we are using is correct. We have many partnerships where we could do better and work collaboratively together with them by having regular joint council meetings and possibly have a seat for them in this chamber. We need to remember that we have a lot of urban Indigenous people in the city who contribute to our economy. They have jobs, own homes, and pay taxes. We need to engage them and ask them what services they need. We share services and we should be working together. Indigenous groups have effective housing programs. We need to learn from them and educate ourselves and our youth about their culture. We need to work with all levels of government to close social and economic gaps, which will address the needs for urban Indigenous people. We need to work to support urban Indigenous people's access to education.
Interact with our Indigenous neighbors, both our First Nation and our Métis brothers and sisters, and to be taken out onto the land and to be really given an inspirational, educational tour of what is there. And it came to a big shock to me that many people, even in Sault Ste. Marie itself, in the city, had not crossed this border into the reserve at Garden River. And they don't know what they're missing. And I think we have to understand also that we can set up committees, we can set up groups, but we really have to ask our First Nations brother and sister and our Métis what they want to do and how they want to participate, if at all, in our systems. I think we have to pay much more attention to previous treaty rights. I think past governments have ignored those or have chose to fight against some of those. I think we need to educate ourselves in that. I've been proud to have been involved in many environmental issues, fighting for their rights in forestry to try and bring a visual representation to that, and in many arts programs to help promote Indigenous arts.
Shoemaker.
Thank you very much for the question. I believe Donna hit the nail on the head with this question. It's about listening to our neighbors and learning from them and determining what the right approach is. In my platform, I've got a want to see an elder in residence brought to City Hall so that we can learn from the cultural teachings and implement culturally appropriate policies in our community. However, that can only be done if that is recommended as the right approach by our Indigenous neighbors. So I also want to see more joint council meetings between Garden River and Batchewana and the Sault Ste. Marie City Council. So that's something we haven't seen over the course of the past couple of terms. What we have done, or what we did do in my first term on council, was cultural competency training at Batchewana First Nation, and that was a lesson that was invaluable to my understanding of Indigenous history and relationships with our community, as well as what I learned from my time at Algoma University, which of course is a former residential school, and the teachings that were prevalent at Algoma University, but that have only, I would say, become more broadly known to the country at large through the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. So that's something that we need to always be cognizant of and always encourage.
Thank you. I'll invite Karina Konini to ask the next question of our candidates.
What will you do to ensure that the administration is implementing continuous improvement techniques and benchmarking of best-in-class municipal practices to ensure accountability to the taxpayer and demonstrate return to taxpayer investments? Lastly, would you support the development of an Office of Continuous Improvement and Productivity reporting directly to City Council?
Thank you. We'll begin with Donna Hilsinger.
Thanks. We had a municipal services review report done a couple of years ago, and a number of areas around best-in-class municipal practice and accountability were identified, and we've been a little delayed on moving that forward, and I think we need to work strongly to make decisions on moving forward the suggestions in the service review opportunities report so that we can adopt those recommended changes. Going along with your question about continuous improvement committee, I believe you called it, or working group, I believe we should adopt into our culture the concept of Kaizen, which is continuous improvement. And it's regular benchmarking and goals, set goals to achieve excellence, to strive for excellence here in Sault Ste. Marie. I believe we should adopt a zero-based budgeting process focusing on our community's strategic priorities, which could make funds available to make new investments in additional services or amenities. I believe we need to cap taxes at or below the rate of inflation up to a maximum of 2.5%, minimize increases, maximize efficiency and the delivery of our services. And finally, transparency is key to the answer to this question. And to me, transparency means including better communications of finance committee meetings and financial reporting with summary of the agenda and decisions published.
Thank you. Next is Ozzie Grandinetti.
Thank you for the question. We need to return to open, transparent, and accountable municipal government. We need to reopen City Hall so that the public can conduct business in person again. I plan on reviewing the current agenda review committee process to have a counselor at the agenda review committee meeting and make materials available earlier in the week. A report card is needed to hold councillors accountable to responding to their constituents' calls and emails and allowing more opportunities for citizens' access to and inputs to council. We need to commission a third-party forensic financial audit or efficiency report to find efficiencies and ensure value for your money is being achieved. We also need to start a conversation to appoint an Auditor General to review all aspects of the stewardship of public funds and municipal expenditures. We also need to look at having a 311 tracking system for all your complaints, and also you can log in compliments to the city workers and councillors. All information must be posted on the city website so that residents can access this information without going through the freedom of information process. Saying that is, I've asked twice now for the environmental assessment for the plaza that's being built downtown. Twice have been denied. It's almost as if they're hiding something. And if I was mayor, that would be posted on the city's website. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Robert Peace.
Thank you for the question. First off, I think continuous improvement needs to be part of a culture at City Hall, not necessarily a siloed office. I think I've heard since arriving in the Soo that City Hall is not a transparent place. Again, two of my opponents have been part of this system, and as far as I've seen, have done little to nothing to change things. People want more transparency. They want to see more about what is going on. We might have to change the model of public meetings here and get out into the community, go door to door, and certainly beef up our social media to be more than just photo snaps. New and former councillors have complained that agendas were set without their input. That style of running things stops on day one when we sit as a team to plot the course for each new quarter. As your mayor, I would encourage you to visit City Hall, and I will make efforts to come to you. I think the amount of times the press or public has had to file through the Freedom of Information Act to receive information also has to be cut significantly. Why do we have to hide? People hide things when they have been around too long. It's time to clean the house, time to stop talking about accountability for years, yet do nothing about it. As your mayor, you can be sure I will be advocating for full transparency. I have no businesses here. I have no favor zone. Let's start cleaning fresh.
Thank you. Next is Matthew Shoemaker.
Thank you. I believe my record on accountability and transparency is unmatched by any other councillor or candidate in this race. For the last 8 years, I have posted every single dollar that I've expended in the carrying out of my public duties on my website, matthewshoemaker.ca. Before the agendas included a voting record through our minutes, I posted my voting record after every meeting. And so that is accountability for our actions. But with respect to accountability for taxpayers, it starts before taking office. It starts with realistic promises in your platform and what you campaign on. I've consistently campaigned on and followed through on my desire to see savings at budget time. Since I was elected, I've proposed $3 million in savings at budget time, and over $2 million of those proposals have been accepted by the majority of council. Not everyone who runs follows this same standard. Mr. Grandinetti has styled himself as a tax fighter in this race, but nothing could be further from the truth. I went back and watched the 2018 budget meeting, which was 5 hours long, and which is available on SooToday and YouTube. It's the last meeting that both Ozzie and I participated in. During that meeting, I proposed $290,000 in savings, and Ozzie didn't propose a single dollar in savings. When he had the chance to save you money, he let it pass by. I won't let it pass by if I'm your mayor for the next 4 years.
Thank you. Next is Tobin Kern.
Well, thank you very much for your question. Without question, greater transparency is paramount in a democracy. So we definitely need improvements in that regard. In terms of quality control and continuous improvement, those are also very important. Rather than taking a top-down approach and imposing there are various systems we can use depending on the area of city operations we want to assess. So we really should look to the input of city staff for appropriate measures to inform quality control and continual improvement. We definitely need a methodology to assess city business against climate change objectives. Our carbon emissions bottom line needs to be assessed alongside our fiscal bottom line. I also want to add that I support measures to give access to council so they can provide their input in setting the agenda. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to ask Colton Oliverio to ask our last question tonight.
My last question to you all would be, what will you do to help improve public health and safety in Sault Ste. Marie, and what does a healthy and safe Sault Ste. Marie look like by the end of your term?
We'll begin with Ozzie Grandinetti.
Thank you for the question. First of all, we must ask ourselves what is being done. Do our police and citizens have adequate resources and tools available to them to adequately mitigate against these problems? Crime needs to be brought under control, need to work with our partners and make our community safer. We need to do this by hiring more police officers and look at subcontracting out to local security companies to help be the eyes of police on a much broader scale. We ensure we are doing the best we can. We have some programs in place that are making an impact, but we need more. I propose that a community action plan, action network be struck and invite all citizens that want to work with the problem to actively participate to develop local workable solutions. A good starting point would be to review existing methods already in place, such as Alberta's Safer Communities and Neighborhood program. We need a rehab center in Sault Ste. Marie with our own experts and provide them with life skills training to support them as they re-enter the workforce. I will be calling on the provincial and federal governments to invest in addictions treatments and looking at resources the municipality has available to invest in this important issue. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Robert Peace.
Thank you very much for the question. Since arriving in the Sioux, I've been passionately involved in this matter. A healthy community is a strong community. We cannot do anything in Sault Ste. Marie without having a healthy community. We need also community-based solutions. We cannot rely on waiting endlessly for provincial or federal facilities to be built here in Sault Ste. Marie. We must really turn this around fast so that our loved ones can receive the help that will save their lives and allow them to live their lives with pride, dignity, and the use of their talents to be constructive contributors to our society. I have heard from frontline workers in multiple services here in Sault Ste. Marie that it's time we bring their voice to the table to discuss solutions. I'd also encourage everyday citizens to take a moment to speak to some people on the street. They're not the boogeyman that some people think they might be. If each one of us spoke to someone we saw on the street once a week for 2 to 5 minutes, I promise you we would start to see changes in this city. I look forward to having the opportunity to tackle this crisis, to work with our frontline workers on developing real solutions and breaking down the silos that exist here. The money is there. The people are here.
Thank you. Next is Matthew Shoemaker.
Thank you for the question. It's a key part of the platform that I've developed to see a supervised consumption site here in our community. This goes hand in hand, I believe, with a downtown police presence. A supervised consumption site would help those in need have the services that they are using outside of the sidewalks and the alleyways of our downtown area. It would give them a safe place to ensure that if there is any issue with their supply, that they can be properly observed and given the health care that they need if they have any issue with that, with their use. With respect to a downtown police presence, I believe that we can create a better and a safer downtown by putting a permanent police presence in the downtown, whether that's a whole station or a precinct or whatever the case might be. It's something that we need to explore. So like we had with the Neighborhood Resource Center on Gore Street, that is. My friend, Mr. Kern, has talked about a safe supply program. That's something else where I think the city could have a serious effect and a beneficial effect on those who do have addictions problems by having, not being worried that the supply that they are using will cause them serious and long-term health issues. And those are several ways that we can help our addictions crisis.
Thank you. Next is Tobin Kern.
Thank you very much for the important question. I just want to contextualize the conversation a little bit. You see the type of dysfunction across cities everywhere in Canada. And bottom line, this is because of the gross underinvestment in the social determinants of health by the successive provincial and federal governments. So now we have the crises. It's time for advocacy. The time for polite conversation with the federal and provincial counterparts has concluded. We're not getting what we need. But precedence has been set. We've seen the feds and the province mobilize for health crisis, and we need to do it again. On addictions, service providers and patients need more treatments and tools at their disposal, including safer supply options, which has the power to decouple addictions from criminality. On mental health, we need greater access to more robust health services, just like in every aspect of health services. And on safety, we need more provincial funding for community wellness and safety programs to address the root causes of crime. We need more youth programming to prevent crime and addictions. More policing is expensive and addresses a symptom of dysfunction, not the dysfunction itself. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Donna Hilsinger.
I would support in public safety more community policing, better preventative social services and initiatives to ensure that frontline officers are available to the places that need them most. I would analyze and act along with others on making strategic investments into our police, fire, and EMS services so our residents' needs are served. playing our role in supporting the further implementation and monitoring of the municipal community safety and well-being plan. We need to see provincial investments along with our own in services for treatment and supervised consumption, transition, and supportive housing for those who need mental health and addiction services. We need to collaborate with and support the tremendous work of Algoma Public Health, who have served us so well during the pandemic. And I've heard from residents who don't have a primary care physician, and accessing health care can be very challenging. Because of the lack of some specialties here locally, some residents are forced to travel for care. Access to primary health care is a key attribute of quality of life and key to attracting new residents. We need to address this and continue to engage with the Northern Ontario School of Medicine and highlight Sault Ste. Marie as a willing partner in their future plans. In order to attract new doctors, I believe a physician recruitment strategy created by our Physician Recruitment Committee, of which I chair, along with others from healthcare, including representation from our Indigenous community, is integral to our success. A 3 to 5 year plan that outlines our goals and objectives and the resources required, both financial and...
Thank you very much. At this point, we invite closing remarks from our 5 mayoral candidates. And I encourage each candidate to tell us a bit about their leadership style and how they would ensure good governance on City Council. You each have 2 minutes. We begin with Robert Peace.
Thank you very much. You know, there are times we need to steer the ship straight in the same direction, and then there are times where we must change course or risk hitting the iceberg in front of us. The iceberg has been on the radar for at least the last 4 years, and very little has been done to change course. I bring to the people of Sault Ste. Marie a full-time commitment to this job. I don't own a business, I won't be working 3 jobs, and I won't have the conflicts that one of my opponents will continue to bring to the position. And to all those running for council, I won't be setting agendas without your input. Let's make change now. The consensus has been at the doors that people are fed up with the closed-door policies and lack of transparency. To effect change, you are going to have to vote for someone you believe not only wants to change, but has the ability to change. The level of sophistication to interact with those at all levels of government. We need someone with a strong and competent voice. I have that. We need someone ready to make changes. I'm ready. And we need someone who has a heart and empathy, and I have that. Talking tough is not enough. We need to respect the council and their views. We need to respect city staff and make them feel they are part of something new and exciting. I believe I am the candidate who can do this. I ask for your support October 24th, and please know that the mayor's door will always be open. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Matthew Shoemaker.
Thank you to the Chamber of Commerce, Algoma University, and SooToday for organizing today's forum and giving us all the opportunity to speak to the community about the upcoming election. As you have heard throughout tonight's event, I've campaigned on a platform, a plan for progress, which is available in full at matthewshoemaker.ca. I encourage you to look at it. While other candidates have tried to pitch the idea that a platform is not important, I think being prepared, transparent, and having a plan shows the community that I'm serious about the job that needs to be done in the next term. A plan for progress discusses the critical issues that our city is facing. In it, you will find real ideas to drive real change, ideas that are specific, realistic, and achievable in our community. It has been developed over the course of months of community consultations with stakeholders and residents. If I'm elected, I will work with council to start the ball rolling on these initiatives over the course of the term. You will be able to judge my success or failures in 4 years' time based on whether I've been able to convince council of the merits of the plan. A plan for progress is about the need for a safe consumption site in our community to help battle the addictions crisis that is gripping our city and hitting our downtown especially hard. It speaks of my desire to see more people downtown and help them feel safe by having a permanent police presence in the downtown core. That I'll return to the days of lobbying the province and federal government like the late John Roswell did. On the environment, I detail out my plans to double municipal tree planting. And I want to do this all in a way that won't skyrocket your taxes. We need growth and we need investment in our city, but we also need to do that in a managed and prudent way. I've shown my work, I've got the plan, and I'm on your side. And on October 24th, I hope I will earn your vote for mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Tobin Kern.
I decided to run for mayor because I have not seen the ambition nor the leadership our city needs to address the crises our city faces. Climate change is on the top 10 list of imminent threats to humanity, yet there's minimal conversation and focus on how we will do our part locally. Across Ontario and North America, municipalities are leading the way, making life better with proven strategies we can adopt tomorrow. Yet we are behind, we have anemic goals, and are not focusing on the world of tomorrow. If I am elected mayor, I will lead by example on climate change, and I'll challenge council to do the same. But climate change isn't it. Every day I work with people who are struggling and living in poverty, so I get to see up close the devastation of the affordable housing shortage, homelessness, and the addictions epidemic. I also see the amount of risk these crises represent. However, because of COVID, the cat's out of the bag when it comes to what's possible, when it comes to provincial and federal mobilization in the face of crisis. Resources can be made available. We've all seen it. This is when leadership needs to stand up and call a spade, when leadership uses their public position to demand more in the press and in the streets if need be, standing shoulder to shoulder with community members who are suffering. This is when leadership adds their voice to the chorus of other vocal municipalities to amplify our common calls for what our community needs. Change looks different. It feels different. It's a mayor who walks to work to inspire others to do their part and says no to wasteful plastic election signs, no waste, period. It's talking publicly about the challenges that face us and engaging the community, not quiet closed-door meetings. We need to celebrate our city, yes, and continue to make incremental improvements and ensure services are delivered well, absolutely. But we will not build the healthy and sustainable community we all want without taking on what stands in our way. It's high time we begin and get to work.
Thank you. Next is Donna Hilsinger.
Thank you to all of you here and those of you at home for listening this evening to our ideas. My leadership style is one of servant leadership. It's leading with respect and honesty and empowering others in their work and in achievement of their goals and aspirations. It's authentic and vulnerable, accepting, present, and useful. I'm very goal-driven. I like to create strategies and drive towards those with specific goals. I developed that leadership style in my 40 years of business experience and volunteer community service, and from mentorship and guidance from former Mayor John Rosewell, community champion Ella Jean Richter, Shirley Horn, Dr. Frank Sarlo, and many, many others. When it comes to governance, the principles I see are transparency, collaboration, listening, inclusivity, and ensuring personal and financial accountability and standards. I'm running to be your mayor because I have a vision for the future and a strong commitment to bring our community together based on the principles of social equity, cultural vitality, focusing on the value to our community of arts, culture, and heritage, economic growth, and environmental sustainability. I've knocked on thousands of doors, and I've heard your concerns. And I believe my many years of experience in business leadership and community service will help us tackle our challenges. I will get to work on day one on our biggest issues and will report back and be accountable to you on progress. It's proven leadership for a brighter future in Sault Ste. Marie. I'm asking for your support on October 24th and hope that you'll vote Donna Hilsinger for mayor.
Thank you. Next is Ozzie Grandinetti.
Thank you to Algoma University, SooToday, and the Chamber of Commerce for holding this event. I will take the role of being your full-time mayor very seriously and will work with all members of council to ensure that we're all accountable and responsive to the needs of our constituents. I will be a strong leader. I value honesty, integrity, and respect. I will hold myself accountable for all my actions and will do the same with my colleagues. I would describe myself as a democratic leader where I encourage everyone to participate and share ideas. With this style, people feel engaged as they contribute to the outcomes. We need to get away from the current authoritarian leadership that we currently have and begin engaging and listening to the community. We need to focus on finding efficiencies and improving services within our municipal government and need to focus on where our tax dollars are going. Like most of you, I am a dedicated and hardworking individual. I provide for my family, pay taxes, and I expect City Council to make the wise decisions with my tax dollars. As a community, we deserve better. We just need to have the right people with the willingness to see it happen. I am confident that as your full-time mayor, I can provide the necessary leadership to get City Hall reopened, get us focused on addressing the most important issues that you brought forward to me during this campaign. As mentioned many times before throughout this campaign, that a vote for me is a vote for you, the people of Sault Ste. Marie, and not the old boys club that control every aspect of how your dollars are spent, unlike Councillor Shoemaker. All the endorsements from mayors, councillors, MPs, and union leaders are nice, but the endorsements that I really want are from you, the people of Sault Ste. Marie. Thank you, and I humbly ask for your support on October 24th. One more thing, I just want to wish Merrick McLeod a happy birthday today. Thank you.
Thank you.
On behalf of Algoma University, Sault Ste. Marie Chamber of Commerce, and SooToday, I would like to thank our candidates for taking part in this forum. We wish each of you the very best of luck in the remaining campaign period. I'd also like to thank our partners who presented this evening's forum, SooToday for helping to organize the forum, collecting questions from the public and steering tonight's event online, and to Shaw Spotlight for streaming in partnership with SooToday for both of our forums this evening and yesterday evening as well. Also, Algoma University and Sault Ste. Marie Chamber of Commerce for hosting the forum, the students of Algoma University Political Science and Law and Justice courses for asking the questions tonight, and also to Alfredo Natividad from PQA for monitoring the mics. The Sault Ste. Marie Chamber of Commerce would like to extend a thanks to North Star Consulting for ongoing support of the Chamber and also for its sponsorship of this evening's events. Thank you to the staff of the Ronald A. Irwin Civic Centre for their help in preparing for tonight's forum. And finally, we would like to thank everyone here in the gallery as well as at home viewing for joining us. We hope that this discussion has helped better inform you about the candidates and the respective platforms. We encourage all eligible voters to exercise their democratic right on October 24th and have their voices heard in Sault Ste. Marie's municipal election. Thank you, and to all of you, a good night.